This podcast is brought to you by United Way of Cast Clay. United Way of Cast Clay strives to create a vibrant, welcoming community where everyone can thrive. Get involved at unitedwaycastclay.org.
You're listening to The Vault, a forum communications podcast covering true crime and general intrigue in the upper Midwest. I'm Trisha Turinskis, reading Tom Olson's story on the sentencing of Michael Allen Carbo Jr. After seeking justice for 36 years, family members of Nancy Doherty have been asked whether they found closure from the August conviction of Michael Allen Carbo Jr. Here's what Doherty's daughter, Gina Haggard, had to say on Friday. Partially, she said, "We know who, but we'll never know why, and no matter what happens here today, she will never come back into my life." Family and friends crowded into a Hibbing courtroom Friday afternoon to watch as Carbo, 54, was sentenced to life imprisonment for the 1986 rape and murder of the Chisholm mother of two. Under Minnesota sentencing laws that were in effect at the time, he'll be eligible to petition for parole after 17 years. While the hearing was largely a formality, Judge Robert Friday had no discretion in imposing the mandatory sentence. It did allow Doherty's loved ones to finally have their day in court. The hearing was not without contention, however, as Carbo maintained his innocence and sought a new trial. Defense attorney J.D. Schmid told the judge, Friday, in no uncertain terms, that he was about to sentence an innocent man to prison. But Friday defended his handling of the evidence and the jury's verdict. And while he said sentencing would do little to quell the family's hurt, he addressed those whose lives have been consumed by the case for more than 3 decades. Doherty, 38, a nursing home worker and Chisholm, Minnesota ambulance service volunteer, was found dead in her home on July 16, 1986. She had been sexually assaulted, beaten, and strangled, with police indicating there were signs of struggle both inside and outside the residence. Authorities said DNA from well over 100 suspects were tested over the years, but Carbo was never on the radar until the Chisholm Police Department contracted with a genealogical service to compare crime scene samples against those in privately maintained databases and develop a profile of the suspected killer. The method, similar to the one that caught the Golden State Killer in California, was believed to be a first of its kind in Minnesota, with Judge Friday last fall affirming the constitutionality of the searches. DNA from several sources at the crime scene, including semen, were conclusively shown to be a match with Carbo. His DNA was also found under Doherty's fingernails, and authorities said there were signs of a struggle, both inside and outside of the house. Schmid did not dispute the DNA evidence, but maintained that his client engaged in consensual sex with Doherty before she was killed by another person. While barred from explicitly naming an alternative perpetrator, he strongly implied that it was a friend of Doherty's, who knew she was alone and became jealous after seeing her with Carbo. But St. Louis County Prosecutor John Holitz told jurors that Doherty's rape and murder were intertwined, with no other credible physical evidence at the scene to point to a different killer. The 12-member jury heard 5 days of testimony from Doherty's family, friends, and neighbors, law enforcement, and medical and forensic experts. The panel met for 9 hours across 2 days before returning a guilty verdict on August 16th on 2 counts of first-degree murder while committing criminal sexual conduct. Schmid on Friday asked the judge to reconsider his decision, barring the alternative perpetrator evidence, and grant a new trial with a different jury. The public defender said there was ample evidence for the jury to consider whether Doherty's friend, Brian Evanson, was actually responsible. Evanson, a key witness at trial, was the last confirmed person to have seen her alive, and among the group that found her body the next day. Schmid cited evidence that Evanson previously had an affair with Doherty, sent her letters expressing love and frustration, and even admitted to an investigator at one point that he pondered whether he had unconsciously committed the murder. Schmidt said courts are institutions, and institutions make mistakes, citing more than 3,000 documented exonerations. Carbo himself told Doherty's family that he was sorry for their loss, while maintaining that he was incapable of committing such an act. He said he was a heavy drinker at the time and had a habit of going to bars to hook up with older women, explaining that he simply had no memory of the night. But Holitz accused the defense of mischaracterizing evidence, adding that Evanson had alibi witnesses and that none of the defense's allegations placed anyone else at the scene of the crime. Friday stood by his decision to reject the alternative perpetrator defense, saying he followed the law as it exists at this time, even if an appeals court ends up viewing it differently. An anticipated appeal from Carbo would go directly to the Minnesota Supreme Court and must be filed within 90 days. Outside the courthouse, Gina and Dave Haggard didn't know how to react. They said they were grateful the case was finally over, barring a successful appeal, but life will go on more or less as normal. Doherty's murder occurred just as Gina was 18 and heading off to college. Gina, who has now lived without her mother more than she did with her, said her mother has missed many family milestones. It's been a constant source of awkwardness, preventing Gina from getting close to friends or other sources of support. Dave Haggard never met his mother-in-law, having married Gina in October of 1993, but he's seen the profound impact it has had on her, standing by her through decades of efforts to finally see justice. Gina thanked the superheroes who made the case possible, including former and current Chisholm police chiefs Scott Erickson and Vern Manor, others in law enforcement, and the two St. Louis County prosecutors, Holitz and Chris Flory. With DNA technology constantly advancing, the case could bring hope to families of other long unsolved homicide victims. The family's motto has always been, never give up. Unlock more cold cases and crimes from the past at inforum.news/try. Get your first 3 months of unlimited access to our entire news network for only 99 cents a month. Visit inforum.news/try to take advantage of this deal.